Dear participants, welcome back to the second session. We will be resuming the second session. Professor Sapan Thapar will be delivering us the second lecture. Sir, you can start your presentation.
Yeah, so am I audible and the screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Kindly confirm.
Yes, sir. You are audible as well as screen is visible.
Yes. So thank you participants for the first session. And now we'll start with focusing on the Indian sector as we have discussed. Let me show. Yes. So we started with the Indian context. What is the kind of energy requirement of different fuels and the relationship between the GDP and the energy consumption patterns, the share of fossil fuels, the Sankey diagram, which provides a balance of the Indian energy sector, both on the generation part as well as on the consumption side. The import shares of these fuels, and we had come to this slide, which is a map of India, the political map, the physical map, which provides a kind of a location-wise concentration of different types of energy assets. So in terms of the energy capacity, the total capacity is around 400 gigawatts. Out of that, around half of it is from coal, around a quarter from the renewables, and remaining from hydro and the gas. So we have around 200 gigawatts of coal, around 40 of solar, around 40 of wind, around 25 of gas, and around 46 of hydropower. Total is around 380 or 382 gigawatts. And this is a profile of the last 20 years. So the sector has almost grown twice in the last 20 years. Around 6% growth is there. And we can see the growth in coal has almost now stabilized over the last 4 to 5 years. The share of hydropower is also constant. The share of coal, solar is increasing. You can see the small yellow bar on the top of this chart. Wind is also slowly growing. And you can see this chart providing a glimpse of the total generation capacity. So the thermal has grown almost twofold from 90 to 230, which includes gas as well. Hydropower has remained more or less constant from almost 35 to 45. Nuclear is also constant around 7. Renewable energy sources, which has grown tremendously from around 13 to 85, almost 7 to 8 times. So that has really added to the Indian renewable sector because of very good mix of policies and the financial interventions. So in terms of the energy, electricity generation, you can see the share of thermal has almost been constant around 60%, 65%. Hydropower has come down, and the renewables have grown over the last 5 to 6 years. Interestingly, the non-fossils share is almost constant, around 30 to 35%. Fossils are remaining 60 to 65%. Within the non-fossils, hydropower, which was having a predominant share 10 years back, now it is in a way bit lagging the other renewables like solar and wind. Within the share of the overall capacity, the sector has grown over the strength of the private participation. So the private participation till 2013-14 was very low. Now it has picked up. So from as little as 20 to now 170 plus gigawatts of private participation is there. So you can see almost stagnant capacities in the central and the state sector. So India is you can say a federal union of states. So central is the federal government and the states are the respective jurisdictions. So states are almost 100 gigawatts, similarly center for 100 gigawatt, but a lot of private has come up mostly in the renewable space, around 170 in the private sector. And the energy generation of India, yeah, there is a good graph. So you can see over the last 20 years from around 500 billion units to around 1000 billion, 1200 billion units. So the coal or the fossil based capacity is there. Obviously, the renewables are slowly showing their presence in the last 3-4 years. Nuclear, hydropower, bio is also a non-fossil formats which are in a way bit constant over the last 7 to 8 years. But now what is apparently happening that coal plants, older ones are being retired or are getting retired, and that space is being occupied by newer solar and wind. Even for the newer additional demand of energy, the share of or the source of that additional energy is from renewables. And we can see renewables contributing around 150 or 140 billion units out of the 1400 billion units total. So around 10% is from renewables. Nuclear is almost 4%. Hydropower is around 11-12%. Remaining is for thermal. So a good mix, but slowly we are moving more towards adding more of renewables in the country. Now, in terms of the energy supply or the energy availability, obviously there was very high, large level of energy deficits 10 years back. Now it is almost bridged because of the expansion of the grid, the provision of more supply sources. The availability of power has increased tremendously, and most of the cities, states, the villages are having good quantity of or good supply of energy. The next is the share of renewables, which is around 10% in the total pie chart. Just hold on. Yes, sir. Good morning. We can see the share of around 10% renewables, around 10% hydropower. Remaining is mostly from thermal power, which is a mix of coal and partly from gas. So we can see similarly here also 80% is from the thermal resources, hydropower and the nuclear, and the renewables are having the remaining share. In terms of the per capita consumption, it has increased from around 800 to around 1200. Or total consumption also increased from 800 billion units to around 1300 billion units. That is also good, that the country is in a way growing with growing share of energy resources. In terms of consumption by sectors, electricity, you can see industry is consuming almost 40%. Around a quarter of it is by domestic sector. The blue bar, around 20% on the agriculture sector, because India is having a lot of villages, 600,000 villages. So that requires good amount of energy for powering their irrigation pump sets. So that is the reason why we have around a fifth of the energy being consumed in the agriculture sector. These are the kind of graphs providing an overview of the energy consumption sectors. So the industries have grown in India, whether it is software, the hardware, the manufacturing industries. Then there are a lot of commercial buildings which have come up. Domestically also a lot of new habitation, new cities are coming up. People are moving to urban areas with high consumption of energy. You can see these are the major areas of consumption, and the growth is expected in these cities and the industries in the coming years also. This is an interesting map which provides an overview of the grid lines in the country. So the country is extensively networked in terms of the grid, the power grid. So you can see the lines of different capacities, whether it is 1200 kilowatt, whether it is 400 kilowatt, 220 kilowatt, whether it is HVDC lines. And you can see there is a good amount of movement of power in the country, within the country, from the demand regions to the supply regions. Why? Because we have demand in certain urban pockets, but the supply is available from remote areas which are having coal mines or solar or wind projects which are far off from the urban areas. So we need to have some transmission corridors. And this is also made possible to expand the energy access in the country. So as on date, we have around large capacities in terms of the circuit kilometers of the transmission corridors, which provides a kind of a opportunity for us to transfer power within the country. This is a share of different energy sources over 3 months from April to June 2021. And we can see the share of renewables on some days is very high, on some days is very low. This is also a challenge when we integrate so much of renewables. So we have some days as high as 20%, 16% share come from renewables. Some days it is even low, lesser than 10%. So that also is a factor we need to capture, because coal and is not very easy to regulate. So we have to have a reason of some kind of storage mechanisms to integrate more of renewables. Over the last 5 to 7 years, the country has not added much of coal. It has focused more on the renewables like solar and wind. As we can see from this chart, the black bars are of coal, the yellow bars are of solar, and the blue ones of wind. So you can see the yellow bars slowly increasing in large capacities. And as on date, we can see the around 100 gigawatts of renewables are there in the country, around 45 each of solar and wind, around remaining from bio and the small hydel power. And we can see in the last 3 to 4 years, we have added around 8 to 10 gigawatts of solar every year and around 2 to 3 gigawatts of wind. So this, based on these projections, we are expected to have good share of solar and wind in the grid. And this is a kind of a chart on the left part, which is the total capacity, the cumulative capacity. You can see thermal capacity is not being added in that size, and more addition of renewable power. On the right part, the annual additions. So coal is the dark red is the thermal power, which is almost now saturated. So not much of addition here, but more addition of the yellow ones, which is the renewables, which include solar, which include wind. And these are the targets, the intermediate targets for the 2022 year. So we have around 170 gigawatts of target. So we have reached a good amount in this year, despite COVID, but we are expecting that we'll be trying to meet these targets with greater emphasis on the solar and the wind sector. Now, obviously, India is one of the largest emitting carbon emitters. Why? There are two reasons. Why? Because India is a big country, huge population, second largest population, largest democracy. Secondly, we are using fossils because of their availability And being a developing country, we can't afford very high cost gas or other nuclear fuel also is somewhat limited in the share in the country. And hydropower is in the Himalayas, which are having environmental issues, so we can't put up so much of river dams on those projects, on those areas. So that's why we are having good amount of emissions. But the per capita emission of the country is among the lowest in the world in India, as equivalent to a lot of our African friends and from the East Asian economies. Now, coming to the sector, the power sector. Most of the country is very big, as we can see, around 30 states are there. So we have a central level federal policy maker, which is the Ministry of Power, where there are technical wings, which is for Central Electricity Authority, the load dispatch centers, and the transmission companies. On the state part, similar counterparts are there, which will help the state to help the sector grow with similar focus. So state governments are also focusing on putting up their own projects and utilizing the renewable portfolios, the resource for adding up the projects. Now, India was incidentally not a very friendly market for the energy sector, but there were reforms almost 20 years back in the year 2003. Before that, there was everything was owned by a government as a single monolith body. Power generation, power transmission, and power distribution. But what has now happened that the market has moved from a single entity to multiple entities. So we can have number of generating companies selling power directly to consumers or through the exchange or through the open access route, besides the existing corridors. So we have opened up the market in the last few years. That's why the investments are coming up. There are newer models of energy development being made in the country, and the energy gaps has been filled up, and we are adding more of renewables. So yeah, this is the kind of a chronology of events over the last 20 years. There was a Electricity Act in the year 2003. Subsequent, there will be electricity policy, the tariff policy, the competitive bidding, the policies on hydropower, on the grid codes, on the renewable energy certificate, which is REC, and then for competitive bidding for solar and wind also started. So this has really pushed the market over the last so many years. And this is the very good for the country that slowly the country is now getting the benefits. But as of now, around majority of the transactions in power sector are under the long-term models, wherein the companies sign long-term purchase agreements or the selling agreements with their counterparts. The sellers, which are the companies which are generating power, are having long-term tie-ups with the power distribution companies. But slowly they are also exploring the power markets. So around 10% is from the power markets through the exchange, wherein there is daily power fluctuating every minute, every second. There is a different power price. So you can negotiate the price based on your requirements and also even sell the power in the market if there is a surplus power. Now, what have been the renewable energy policies? So interestingly, both at the central level and the state level, there has been a number of policies and the programs which to support, to augment, to encourage the renewable projects. So we have under the Electricity Act, lot of the supporting enabling regulations. We have the Central Regulatory Commission, CERC, the State Regulatory Commissions, SERCs, which have come out with the obligations. RPO means the renewable portfolio, how much energy from renewable power the state government has to have to meet the requirements. We have the grid codes, we have the support from the banks and the institutional research agencies. So there is a dedicated ministry for renewable energy, which is known as the Ministry of new and renewable energy. There are dedicated research agencies within that for solar, for wind, for biomass, for hydropower. There is a dedicated funding agencies and also agencies in the states, counterpart agencies in the states. Besides, a lot of institutional research like carried out at like IITs, like TERI, and a lot of social civil service organizations. Civils like TERI is working on a lot of projects in the ground. This is the renewable potential of map of India. As we can see, there are different areas endowed with different level type of energy. So solar is mostly in the western belt, wind is mostly in the southern belt, hydropower is mostly in the northern and the southern belt. Biomass is equally spread across many regions. Now, this doesn't include coal because this is renewable potential. But if we add and see the refer the chart on this, yes, yes. So we can, in a way, see a very complementing kind of a thing wherein solar, wind, hydropower, biomass, and coal can address most of the energy requirements of the country. That will be very useful for us to move forward. So we can see again the chart is there, yes. So some areas are endowed with solar, so they can put up solar power projects. Some are wind, so they can put up wind turbines. Some are biomass fuel projects areas. So we can have a complementing uh, programs to promote these sectors so that the energy is there and we have a very good dense network of the grid lines, which can help us to transfer the power from X to Y places. And this is a chart for the last 20 years. The solar has started around 2010 or 11 after the launch of the solar mission in the country. Wind was there as early as 1980s, but now their capacities are almost meeting. So around 40 gigawatts each of solar and wind are there in the country. And we can see a good mix slowly moving forward, which is also a good sign for the country to progress on solar. Now, this is the overall growth of the solar, the renewable sector. So the renewable sector is almost now touching around 100,000 megawatts or around 100 gigawatts, which is mostly from coal and wind, solar and wind, but partly also from the small hydropower and the biomass. You can see the chart is there with the policies on each of the years, which is there. So it is Electricity Act, it is the tariff policy, it is the guidelines on the solar mission or the tariff or the guidelines on the renewable energy certificate. Every second, third year, we have a good kind of a new policy intervention, which really helped the sector to grow enormously. The growth after 2015, we can see mostly on account of the solar growth. The orange bar is growing very fast in the last 4 years because of the reduction in the solar prices and the kind of a mission mode the solar sector in India has grown over the last 5 years. And this has been a generation of the renewable energy in the country over the last 5 to 6, almost 1.5 years. So you can see the red line is for solar. Solar is almost constant throughout the year because generation is very much sturdy. You know that sun hours are there in the daytime. But wind is seasonal. Wind means wind will only be there in the monsoon months, which is the monsoon winds or the rains. So we typically from May, June, July, August. So we can see wind picking up in these months and then coming down in the winter months. Other renewables are including biomass, which is also in a way seasonal to some extent when the crops are grown, the sugar crops are there. So they have a lot of projects coming up in these areas. And we'll show the links afterward. These are the links. So this is also a good thing that every data is available on the public platform in the country. This is also something which you can do for your own country. Let the data be available for the policy makers, for the research agencies, for the academicians. So they will also come up with some good kind of projections and also policy interventions which are required for the sector. So I was talking about the policies for the renewable sector. So the Electricity Act, we had a kind of a feed-in tariff wherein all the projects were given assured a fixed tariff for their solar or wind power, and the companies were required to procure energy from the renewable energy resources for a fixed proportion of their total portfolio. And then we had a competitiveness which was introduced under the electricity policy, wherein now we are having the projects being bid under the open auctions. And then there was a tariff policy which mandated the government to develop the tariff models. So you can have these kind of models for your countries also, so that which gives a kind of a open tools to develop the tariffs, to determine the tariff based on the cost and the expected generation from these projects. And in terms of the policy instruments, we have on the supply side, the feed-in tariffs, the bidding systems, the subsidies. On the demand side, we want the companies to procure renewable power to fulfill the credits. And similarly, on the financial instruments, we have the tax, income tax holidays, the depreciation benefits for these renewable clean energy projects. And on the coal projects, we have to pay certain tax, coal cess. On the other part, the subsidies are provided for the projects in terms of any kind of viability gap funding or some payment security mechanism. So this is a good payment security mechanism, is something which is like the projects are performing, but they're not getting paid. So some kind of assurance is there to the project companies that, okay, you can check with the companies, and then you can assure them that, yeah, your power would be sold. If the payment is not made, then some kind of payment security is there to help you out in terms of distress. And the Central Commission determines the tariff based on certain parameters, which is a very, you can say, transparent system. So you have a cost which is taken from the market, you have the interest rates of the banks, debt equity ratio, the power generation from the project, the life, the taxations, and the repayment period. So these factors, 7-8 factors, help to determine the tariff from a project, which is very important and which also in a way gives the confidence to the investors. So on this tariff, then there is bidding which is happening. So suppose the tariff is, say, 5 cents or 6 cents, dollar cents per kilowatt hour. In that case, you can think of some kind of open bidding or tenders being offered, and whomsoever is bidding at the lowest rate. So somebody says that, okay, rather than 6 cents, I will sell the power, solar power at 5 cents or 4.5 cents to the government. Then those companies will get the tender for putting up this project. So there are three kind of contexts in terms of the policies. One is the overall policy, one are the incentives, one are the regulatory interventions. So on the policy part, we have dedicated solar policies, the auctions, the ministry, creation of dedicated ministries. On the financial incentives, we have the tax holidays, the generation incentives or feed-in tariffs. And on the regulatory part, we have the energy banking, the wheeling, wherein you can push the energy to the market, and or you can export the surplus power to the local grid, which will be banked with them. You can take the power back when you need it. So these kind of facilities are there as early as 1990s, and recently now we have started the green exchange, wherein you can sell the power in the exchange, solar and wind, to get some good money. So what have been the overall kind of investment, the fiscal incentives? The tax rates are lower for the companies, the depreciation is there. There is a concept called the transmission system charges, which is waived for the solar projects, because solar projects are there in deserts or in the cold and hot deserts or plateaus. But the demand centers are in cities like Delhi, like Bombay. So you have to move power. So there are no charges for that transfer of power. That supports the projects in the remote areas, so that the cost is not or the charges are not levied on the project. So the power is very competitive, solar power. Then we also have a dedicated scheme for the farmers, wherein they can put up small number of modules, solar projects on their fields itself, so to draw the irrigation pump water from the ground, and also to supply excess power to the grid. And we also allow 100% foreign investments by any entity in our sector, the renewable sector. The targets for the renewable sector is around 20% solar, 10% solar, and 10% non-solar power, mostly wind power in the grid, which has to be done by all the states or all the power companies. So slowly you can see the slow incremental graphs. So it is not that you are suddenly giving a shock to the companies. Slowly you are gradually increasing the share of renewables in the market, so that they are able to absorb and they are able to put up more projects. They are able to technically strengthen the grid to accommodate more of renewables in their grid. Now we'll come to the what are the good business models for the sector. Wind sector is typically started in late 70s, early 80s in the country. So the companies were able to put up wind projects, and then you can say they can sell the power to the local grid, even bank the power with the local grid, and take the power back when they are in need. And there was a dedicated or guaranteed feed-in tariff which was provided to the projects. The interesting part is that there was a concept called concept to commissioning model, C2C, wherein the entire work was done by the wind companies. So there was no need for you to train your own staff. So you, as an investor, as a company which is not into wind sector, you can invest in the wind sector. All the work will be done by these companies, which are wind manufacturing companies. They will select the sites, they will do the due diligence to earmark the wind turbine sites. They will put up the turbines, they will commission it, they will run it for some, say, next 10, 15 years at certain cost, not much. So this is a beautiful model wherein as an investor, I don't need to, even as a government policymaker, there is no need for me to think on the technical and the other challenges. Let the people in the private sector handle all the challenges. I'll just try to earmark certain land for them and certain kind of market models or power selling models to the companies. We had around 600 wind monitoring stations in the country, because wind is very site specific. So it is difficult for somebody to earmark the wind sites. So the government has done that work to assess the wind sites based on the data from the meteorological department and the local met towers. They worked hard and they have developed this kind of extensive network of the data centers, and the data is available on public platform. So you can check the data, and based on your requirements, you can put the turbines in those areas. And then we have around 7 to 8 large manufacturing companies in the country: Suzlon, Gamesa, GE. They're all large, big companies in the Indian manufacturing side. Their manufacturing base is in India. So you have good companies, we can put up good projects in the country. You can see this is a kind of a concept of wind monitoring station, which has been set up across many locations in the country based on the initial satellite data that these sites are having good wind sites or wind locations. So this is a site. So these are the kind of data, and then this is data is then extrapolated to higher hub heights, or the levels are high, so that the companies can think of putting up large size turbine in these areas. And the wind tariff is, this is the Indian rupees, but if we convert to US dollars, it will be as low as around 4 cents per dollar. Less than that. The tariffs have reduced over the last 2 to 3 years after the coming of the wind site auctions. Now, why the solar has really progressed very nicely in the country. We have, obviously, India is a tropical country, so the solar radiation is there across the landmass. You can go to any state, any location, any 30 states, some sun is always there. And the modules have now lower cost, and the government has earmarked this kind of solar parks, which are in a way pre-developed infrastructure with utility support like land, like water, like road and the power lines. So these are pre-marked areas where everything is provided. The investor just have to use a plug and play model. So they just need to put up their modules there, and the power will be evacuated by the power lines. Road network is there, water is available. The local people are trained to run on solar projects. So everything is there. So this is a very good concept. So these are projects which are in the wastelands of the country, deserts, plateaus. You have plenty of them. So solar park, this is a concept of solar park. So you have pre-developed facilities for roads, for transmission lines, for drainage. And we have on one site all the entities, whether it is project developers, investors, the power companies, and also the companies who will put up the site projects, like the contractors. So this has really made the projects across country develop across the country. We have solar parks which are there across all the states, and very large projects. So 2000 megawatts, 3000 megawatts, and all the states are having good solar parks which are really helping the sector to grow. Now, interesting, there is another model wherein it is important for us to discuss on this slide. Because of multiple entities, the project developers, which are like international investors, they maybe not be comfortable to sell to different states. Like states are there in this slide. Some states are very rich, some are not very rich. So how will they pay? So there is a federal agency which comes as or works as an intermediary with some kind of power guarantees or repayment guarantees. So if the final company doesn't pay you, the power discom is a distribution company, then you are paid in a way by some kind of federal funds. So some kind of guarantees enable the sale of power to multiple states. So in this slide, you can see, say a state in western part, say Rajasthan, which is having good amount of solar power. On the west part, you can see the orange big one state. Suppose it wants to sell to other states in southern part or the eastern part. Very difficult for states to manage so many agreements. So in this case, the federal agency will also help you to sell the power under the power sale agreement with multiple states. This is a very beautiful concept for, especially for large countries and democracies like India. Very important. And overall, the solar is now more than 40 gigawatts, 40,000 megawatts. Every year, the addition is around 7 to 8,000 megawatts. Due to some COVID kind of restrictions, the addition was in the last year was not so high, but still we expect good number of solar to come in the coming years. By another 5 to 7 years, we can expect another 50 gigawatts to be added. And the solar tariff, now it is less than 3 cents. You can see from as high as 18 rupees, Indian rupees, 17.9 to almost as low as 2.44. Why? Because of these reasons, including the cost of the modules, including this kind of a solar park model, and including the mandates for solar procurement. This has all resulted in a lot of competition in the market, because we have a assured market, we have open market, very transparent systems, investors are allowed. So this is a kind of extremely good blend of a lot of interventions which has helped to reduce the solar power cost. Now there is a challenge for India, because some states are having good amount of solar and wind power. You can see the yellow ones are the solar power graph and the blue ones are the wind. So some states, out of these 30 states, only 5 to 6 states are having almost 10 to 12 gigawatts of solar and wind power combined. But as we can see from the initial slides, we can recall the solar power is only in the daytime for 6 hours, wind power only in the monsoon 4 months of the year or 5 months. So how to balance that power, how to meet the requirements for the remaining part of the day? Say after sun hours in the night, what should I do? Where should I get the power? So that is a need for India to put up storage systems, to have some complement with the solar, with the hydel power, with the biomass power. And this is the kind of share of different resources, renewables in the grid. So some states are having almost 30% share of these variable power. So unless we have a very strong grid where we can transfer power from one state to another, because there is a limited demand in a state, so we can't absorb all the solar and wind power. In a desert, yes, there is no demand. Like in the second state, you can see Rajasthan is having good amount of desert, lot of solar power, almost 20%. But there is no demand because not much of industries are there. So you need to export power to nearby cities like Delhi, like Jaipur. So therein you need to have this kind of concept of the smart grids, which can absorb power from these states to put up in the demand areas. These are the top companies in the Indian market. We have Renew Power, the Azure, the SB, the Adani Power, the Tata's Power, the Heroes. These are the projects which are commissioned and under commissioning. So almost some companies are having good size of their solar and wind projects, which is very important for us to think that we can leverage. So here you can see some private and government companies are there, which is a good mix, that you promote the sector so that everybody is a partner in the prosperity used by the renewable, provided by the renewable energy sector. Now, what are the business models? We'll see in the coming slide. What are the business model? I can sell the power, I can consume the power as a captive plant, I can put the project on my own site or somewhat distant. I can own the project, I can put the project under some kind of a tenancy or a kind of a tariff mode. I can sell to the spot market, I can sell power under the long-term power discom arrangement. And there are also, because India is a very large land mass, so when the power is transferred, you also have some technical losses, some commercial losses. So I can also think of, rather than a centralized system with a transmission system, I can think of decentralized systems. Maybe a local area is having a small solar or a wind facility, wherein all the facility with a storage system. So you can have the local households and the facilities, entities getting powered by the local resource availability, which is a very good model. You have the locals own the model under a kind of a ownership model or cooperative societies, like we have seen in the milk sector in the country, the dairy products. So we can have similar kind of models. So now this is a kind of model. So we can have a solar company, a company, maybe a hotel or a hospital. So you can have or a large software company or a multiplex. So you can put up a solar park there to reduce their power from the utility. Or for a group of customers, I can put up a community solar projects. So this can be within the site, this can be somewhat distant from the site, because I may not have the privilege of the availability of the land in nearby areas. So I probably have to use some remote areas to put the project. Then this is a model which is coming up in India, which is known as RESCO, Renewable Energy Service Company. So this is similar to a kind of a model wherein as an individual, as an entity, I don't need to invest in the project. I don't need to put my brains there. Some company will come to my site. They will say that, okay, let me use my roof. I'll put the solar project or a wind project, and I will give the power to you at a certain cost. So kind of a rented models, wherein I don't put money for the project. I only procure solar power to meet my energy needs and also my green energy requirements. And the excess power can be sold to the grid if that is possible. The other is the concept wherein I put the model in a CAPEX mode, CAPEX, CAP for capital, EX for expenditure. So I put the money as a project owner because I am a rich guy, suppose. So I have used my roof or my installation for putting a solar project, and I get almost a free power for next 25 years because I put the money initially. There is hardly any kind of a maintenance cost. Then the other aspect is concept of the renewable energy certificates. On the top of this slide, you can see the RECs. So you can see the companies selling RECs to the to the entities, the power project developers are selling the renewable certificate, like a green certificates, like a carbon certificate. This is there for last almost 10 years in the country, and there are a good number of buyers. And so in the bottom part of this graph, the chart, you can see there is known as a GTAM, the Green Term Ahead Market. Means this is an open market, a power exchange. So you have a solar power or wind power, you sell to exchange. Somebody needs a solar power to meet their green requirements, they can purchase from you. So there is no need for you to think of long-term customers. Whatever the price is there, you will get maybe higher than the market, maybe higher than the long-term price, maybe somewhat lower in some days also. But that is a kind of a gamble or a bargain you need to strike it out. But still, a lot of projects are coming in this model. And then you can have a projects under the group captive policy. Suppose you have got good number of software companies or some manufacturing companies, but each one of them is not so big or put up the money. So they will together put up a solar project or a wind project as a equity partners, and they can then take the power to meet their energy needs. And then a lot of the Indian companies, whether it is the manufacturing companies, the Tatas, the cement companies, or maybe you can see the names here, the Birlas, the pharmaceutical companies, the e-commerce companies, Amazon, Pepsi, yes, all the companies, breweries are there, Ultratech, cement, L&Ts, they're all thinking of putting up or procuring green power under the corporate PPAs, which is a new norm. Because they need to showcase their green credentials to their investors and the stakeholders, even the company's consumers. So many companies have committed to the RE100 campaign. That okay, let me procure all power from renewables. Slowly, not one time, but obviously over the number of years, they will increase that capacity to 100%. Yes. So this is the discussion ends here. And I'll be happy to take the questions and your observations. You can once again, I will just reiterate the slide which we discussed in the last 45 minutes. So yeah, so we have the solar, yes, so Indian energy market. So we have good amount of energy requirements. India is the third largest energy consumer, I think, after US and China. It is focused using most of fossils because of there is lack of other resources. We're trying to our best to improve the renewables. And there's a correlation between energy and the GDP. And we have to import a lot of our energy resources on the market. This is a chart which is very important. Again, I'm reiterating, you can develop these charts for your own countries also to check what kind of resources are used in which location, in which sector. This is known as Sankey diagram. And then we have discussed on the overall energy availability in the country, the energy chart. So we have seen that the total share of fossils are very high in the country because of availability of domestic coal, and the cost of other products or the other resources are very high. So you have to have certain amount of coal to provide low cost power. But we have really progressed well on the solar in the last few years because of focusing on the solar mission and at least trying to reduce the dependence on coal. So the share of solar and wind have increased. The share of coal has slightly decreased over the last few years. And you can see from this graph, the overall energy size, the market has grown like anything, but we are trying to at least augment the newer energy formats so that we can have good mix of the fuel. And the consumers are, as we can see from the initial slide, also industries, agriculture sector, domestic sector, and the commercial sector. We can see a very dense networking of power conductors or the power transmission lines in the country of different voltage levels, which also provides us the opportunity to export or import power from the different regions. And there is a kind of a infirmity associated with the renewable power, especially because of their variation in the availability. Solar is only in the daytime, wind is only for the few months. So that's why the share of renewable power in the total grid changes frequently. In the last 4 or 5 years, we have added more of solar, and we can see the solar being almost now reaching 50 gigawatts, wind also 45 gigawatts. So total is 100 plus gigawatts. And the emissions are high because of use of obviously coal and other fossils, including oil. So there is a dedicated plan by the country to put up these projects on the renewable front. So we have the Ministry of Power, which is there. There is a dedicated agency to support the Ministry of Power, and there are dedicated state level agencies. And we have moved in India from, you can say, a monolith single body to multiple entities. So we can have choices between the consumers and the energy generators, which will provide a very open market, which has really helped the sector to grow. Now the energy prices are not very high, electricity price is not very high, and the share of renewables is also growing. The policies on renewables obviously includes focus on the overall infrastructure of the country, whether it is ministry, whether dedicated research agencies, or the funding agencies. And the renewable potential is not evenly distributed in the country, but because of the good grid networks, we are having good share of renewables by sale of excess power to the demand regions. So solar has grown over the last few years tremendously. Wind is also slowly, gradually increasing the share in the grid. And over the last 10, 15 years, there have been a number of policies which have really helped the sector to grow. So whether it is these policies on the subsidies, on the tax holidays, on the cess on the coal, or the feed-in tariffs or the renewable obligations, everything has really helped the sector to grow. But we have also now discussed here the kind of models which are very important for us to know. So for wind, the main model was a concept to commissioning model, which has really pulled up a lot of the investments in the sector. And besides that, the industries were allowed to put up their captive wind projects, which were not on their side, but far off at the wind locations, and wherein they can import the power from those sectors to their factories or industries. And if there is excess power, they can ask the utility to bank the excess power. And we also have a tremendous extensive resource assessment of the wind data in the country. We have wind monitoring stations over 600 locations. Yes, 600 locations in the country. So the wind tariff has really reduced to almost now 4 to 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Solar, obviously, we are blessed with the sun god is there in the country. We have very low module prices, and we can see that the concept called the solar park approach. We have pre-developed model wherein the government earmarks the solar land and the companies put up the modules. And we have solar parks across all the states in the country, and we are trying to develop these parks on a mission mode. There is also a role of a federal agencies which help the states to develop the parks and sell to multiple entities or multiple consumers. And the solar tariff has really seen a huge drop, as low as now 3 cents or 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour. But some states are having good share of solar and wind, so that is also a challenge in the coming years when more of solar and wind comes in these states. What will happen? Unless we have a very strong grid or regional demand is so huge that it can absorb all the solar and wind, it is very difficult to have so much of the projects in the country. And there are different tariff models business models. You can have a local project, a decentralized project, a centralized project. You can have your on-site, you can have community projects, you can have the models wherein you sell or you lease the roof for solar projects, or you own the roof. And you can even sell to the open exchange. And there are companies which are going for the corporate PPAs. And this is also the last slide. Yeah, thank you. So you can note my email ID. If any help is there, any kind of support is required, I'll be happy to help or support you in your research work, in your work on developing the climate policies or the finance models. So I am Sapan. I am working as a faculty with the TERI University, India. This is my ID, sapan.thapar@TERI.sas.ac.in. I would like the organizers to kindly share my email ID with the participants, so that if any queries there on today's both the sessions, they can write to me anytime. So any queries, please let me know.
Yes, sir. We will share your mail ID in the chat box as well. And participants, if you have any questions, you can now ask. The time is given.
So hope I was able to share and the best practices from the Indian context, and also in terms of energy, electricity, the renewable energy, the relevance of solar, wind, the business models, the policies. So everything goes hand in hand. It is not that you can develop one thing and you forget the others. It should be probably from the very initial start that you develop the policies based on the resource assessment, the demand, the supply areas, the grid networks, and the kind of equipment of companies, the EPC, the developers. Everything goes hand in hand. So that, and the next level would be that you encourage or invite international participation, and then you can develop large and medium-sized projects based on their resource assessment and the techno-commercial viability. So I hope the session was interesting for all of you, and you would have obviously enjoyed it and taken some leads. I'll be happy to take questions from you maybe in the subsequent days based on your, because I'll be also willing to share my presentation slides with the host so that they can share with you all, and you then may peruse the slides based on your convenience and then reach out to me for any queries. Would it be okay, the organizers? Am I right?
Yes, sir. Sir, we will be doing that. We will be sharing. We have shared your email.
Tesfai from Ethiopia is thanking us. Thank you. Thanks for your patience and thanks for your active participation in the today's class. It was wonderful. It was really good to have people from other developing nations who are friendly to us, who are extremely focused to develop their energy sectors. And this is also important for us to share our best practices, to share, to even to learn from you all. Yes, every country is unique in itself. It is not that I am developing for India or you are not there. You are all working for your own countries. You are trying to do your best, whether it is on the emerging economies. We have a lot of participants from these countries. You are people from the government, from the civil societies. So it is on us, all of us. We should take a pledge that we will try to improve or help our countries to develop the energy sector, reduce the price, try to work out good business models, and obviously work on cutting our carbon emissions. So that should be our kind of a focus and our objective after in this ITEC session and overall the ITEC seminar. So thank you everybody and have a nice, great week and the days ahead. Hope to probably see you sometime when you come to India for any kind of a discussions. We'll be happy to have detailed discussions. Otherwise, you can always write back to us by email. So thank you, the host at IIT Delhi. I'll be sharing the slides with the
Yes, ma'am.
host. They will then share with you. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, sir, for the very informative and insightful talk. I believe all the participants will be taking this learning into their respective field. Sir, we truly appreciate your valuable time here with us today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Have a nice, great day. Everybody enjoy the day, and we all would be looking forward to the nature to help us in the coming days when we have more of climate related issues. So we probably should come back to nature in terms of using its natural resources like solar, like wind, like biofuels, and probably reduce the impact on environment, become more environment friendly, support the ecology, support the environment. So we all of us should take a pledge and help us, the future generations, to work towards greening the planet, to make the earth more livable, more happy, more green. Thank you. With these words, I'll say namaste from India and hello to all of you again. Thank you. So I'm quitting the session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.